Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a video on long distance relationships. So you guys sent me through some questions on Instagram that I'm going to touch over. I have also asked Steve to answer a couple that I'll put up and you guys can see his response to the questions as well. Just thought I would pop that in there just so we have a second opinion of the questions that you guys are asking me, and especially from a male perspective.
What's good, everyone? It's Steve and Hobbs coming to you from the gym Fitness Culture here in Utah. Morgan sent me over some questions that I'm going to be answering for you guys on her channel. So hopefully shed some light on some relationship, long distance stuff. The hardest thing is not knowing when we're going to see each other, I think. It'd be a lot easier if there was a fixed date, but...
I'm just going to quickly go through a couple of these questions. Nice and quick. First one. How many times do you guys talk a day, and what is the time difference like? So we talk maybe a minimum of 3 times a day, and the time difference for us is, I think it's 17 hours. So we talk at my 6 a.m. in the morning, so I'll wake up and I'll call him and it'll be his 2 p.m. And then we'll talk maybe once throughout the day, and then we talk once at nighttime when he's about to go to bed, which is about 10 p.m. and that'll be about my 2 p.m. So it's like every 4 hours or so, and we have 8 hours difference between in regards to when it's my 6 a.m. it's his 2 p.m.
How do you deal with jealousy? I would just remember a little bit of jealousy is always healthy. So like if you're not jealous of your significant other's time, but there is a healthy level of that, and then it gets into like this obsession where it really is probably thinking like, oh, like I'm not good enough for that person, I'm jealous, they're gonna leave me, blah, blah, blah. That comes from a lot of insecurity. So I think that it's about getting healthy yourself, and then realizing if someone was gonna, go stray, cheat on you, that's more on them than it reflects on you. So I think having good trust in a relationship is paramount, and talking about things, having good communication. If you feel a certain way, or if you feel uncomfortable, speaking up and saying, telling your significant other why you might be feeling uncomfortable. So I think Morgan and I do a fairly good job of that. Again, there's always gonna be some level of healthy jealousy just because we're humans and our significant other means a lot to us and they're precious and we wanna hold on to them. So there's that healthy level that it should always be, kept into that.
Do you get worried girls will flirt with Steve? And how do you deal with jealousy? I am not worried at all about girls flirting with Steve. Steve is a grown-ass man. He knows exactly what he wants, which is a life with me. And I don't question his every move. I don't question whether he is flirting. There are things, and this is touching on jealousy. I don't like to call it jealousy because I find jealousy has a very negative connotation behind it. I would say if there's anything that I feel gross about, if there's anything that's really churning up my tummy and making me second guess certain things, I'll bring it up to him like straight away, because I've been there, done that. When you sit and think about something for a couple of days, you finally bring it up, and then your other person is like, oh, why would you do that? Why are you jumping down my throat? Blah, 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 blah. Like, I've done that. I've been there, done that, and it's toxic. Okay, next question that we have is a little bit more of an intimate one. I had a lot of people, and this isn't coming from a creepy kind of way, it's from actually a lot of girls, and they were asking how you keep the intimacy alive, how you deal with not being able to cuddle, have sex with your partner, do all that sort of stuff. I'm not going to touch on it deeply, but I'm just going to say that we are adults. There are things that you do as an adult by yourself that will help you get past that lack of. We talk to each other very well. We let each other know what we miss about each other. We keep that intimacy alive by, again, communication. We always FaceTime so we can see each other, because I find that is a little bit more comforting, knowing that you can actually look at that person and talk in that way. Doing little things for each other. The other day he sent me some flowers, this beautiful big bouquet of flowers. My problem is that my love language is touch. I wish it was like words of affirmation or something that can be done online, but it's not, it's touch.
How do you keep the intimacy alive? That's a good one. That's a good question. From long distance, it's hard, but I think you remember, we try to have intimacy in other ways, in terms of like having, little messages, little, I love you videos, reading together at night, all these things that, again, you learn more about somebody that makes you fall in love with them more, because it's more than just the physical attraction. We know that physical attraction is there. It's apparent every time I look at her Instagram. that I'm physically attracted to her. It's more about, hey, what do you learn, or what can you, I guess, go deeper with that person. Positive of long distance, that what I just said kind of works into the positive. You're forced to really be with somebody for who they are up here, not just how they look. So what's in their heart, what's in their brain, and you grow together, I think, because you going through something that's pretty difficult to begin with. And I feel like if you can go 6 months without seeing somebody in a pandemic, which is kind of what the time frame is that we're looking at, that is a definite, that's a hill, that's an obstacle. There's probably not a lot of relationships out there that if they're shaky can go through 6 months long distance from that far away. So I think it's just kind of a testament to, hey, this relationship is gonna stand the test of time because we've done 6 months apart.
How do you think the transition from being in a long distance relationship to living together will go? Yeah, I think it'll be completely fine because you appreciate so many things more. So everything that you and your partner, and I'm talking to you guys, you and your partner that maybe aren't in a long distance relationship can sort of have each day, waking up next to each other, kissing each other, like congratulating each other. Anything that you can do in person, everything feels so much better in person. Even if it's just a hello, it's so much nicer in person.
How do you think going from long distance to living together full time will go? I think that it's always going to be some adjustment. I think that from living together, when you live by yourself, when you live alone, you don't have to worry about leaving your dishes out. You don't have to. So I think that there's just going to be some kind of transition that comes back into that. But the pros obviously outweigh the cons on that. I just think it's going to be something that, I'll have to, like right now, I don't have to, there's the hour we're on the phone probably during the day. Besides that, I'm selfish with my time. I'm going and hitting golf balls. I'm at the gym. I'm working. I'm doing everything that has to deal with my life. So when Morgan comes back, it's going to be about taking some time to go for a walk, watch Netflix, do an activity together, giving up some of that free time, which is fine.
Do you ever get bothered with your significant other if they interact with the opposite sex or do collabs? For example, Steve collaborating with some of the other Gymshark athletes. No, as I said before, touching on the stuff, I don't. I find that we have a very easy separation between work and personal. Usually most of the time if he's collaborating with other Gymshark athletes, it's on a more of a work kind of thing. He wants to interact with other Gymshark athletes. He wants to do that sort of stuff. And I would do the same. I mean, given that Australian travel would let me, but it's not. But it's very chill, only because we both work in an environment, social media, that is actually all about interacting with everyone, not just the same sex, but the opposite sex as well. So we've come to, that's just something we both personally don't feel any negative things about. We don't feel jealousy about. We don't do anything like that. So that's all good. It's not even a problem for us.
Do you ever get bothered with your significant other if they interact with the opposite sex or do collabs? I think if it was, just depends on what the collaboration is, and I think probably who it is. I think it's one of those things too that you feel like if you've met the other person, if you know what they're like, or and that being said, there's some people that I think Morgan has that she's just like, yeah, I'm not a big fan of that person, the way they act towards you. Like I think that and vice versa. So I think that it's just that, again, that open communication. If there's that gut feeling where that person, I don't like, there's a feeling I get when I see them around you. It doesn't happen very often, but I think that you need to be, as a significant other to that person, you need to be aware of that and very open to their feelings, and vice versa.
Sometimes long distance gets extremely lonely. How do you cope with that? The best way to describe long distance is that you are lonely, but you're not alone. You're surrounded by so many people of different relationships to you, but you still feel quite lonely. There are times where that you share with yourself, you only have by yourself, that would be shared with your partner if they were there. And those sort of times is when it gets lonely. When you're around other people, it's not that you forget about your significant other, it's just that you were caught up in spending time, quality time with the people that you love that aren't your significant other, that you really do enjoy that time with them as well. I find that, for me right now, I definitely do get lonely. I'll message him or I'll look back on videos or photos because our relationships plastered on social media. I do get to go back on YouTube videos and just watch how we interact with each other and really just reminisce on that, because I know that when we see each other again, it's going to be exactly the same, if not better, because we appreciate the time that we do have together so much more than I would say your average couple does. I mean, you can't not feel lonely. It's not something you should try and like stray away from and make sure that you're doing something all the time so you don't feel lonely. I think you should actually sort of suck that in and really know what it feels like to feel that feeling, so that when you do end up back with your partner or a significant other, that you really can enjoy that time and cherish it for what it is.
Sometimes long distance gets extremely lonely. How do you deal with that? This is so hard. Yeah, I think surrounding yourself with friends and families is nice. Hobbs, if I didn't have Hobbs, come here, dude. Come here. You've been my little lifesaver. You've been my little lifesaver. If I didn't have this little guy, hi. You want to say hi to the people? Hey, everyone. If I didn't have this little guy to cuddle with in the mornings, every time I wake up, I look over to the side of my bed and his little ears are just sticking up. So having Hobbs has been definitely a good thing. And then I think just focusing on goals, but definitely gets lonely. 8 o'clock on just kind of sucks.
So someone asked why we are doing long distance and why we aren't living together already. So currently, for me to get over to America, I need to have some sort of visa, unless we get married, which isn't happening anytime soon. So we wouldn't be applying for that visa, but I would have to be going over on a business visa or a partnership visa, where you have to really provide information to like the court and to the government showing that you're in a relationship, that pretty much I'm bringing something into America. Like there's a reason as to why America should let me come and live there. And then the same goes with Steve coming into Australia. The problem right now is that COVID is happening. So we would actually be fine if COVID wasn't a thing. We wouldn't be doing as long distance between each other, because we are very fortunately in a position where we can fly back and forth from each country and visit each other. Steve was meant to be coming over to Australia come September, which is in like a week. But because of COVID, he's now not allowed into Australia. Australia's borders are closed. They're not letting anyone out. They're not letting anyone in, unless you apply for an exemption, which takes months anyway. So it's really something that we're just trying to look at all the different ways in which we can actually go about it and apply for exemptions or apply for visas and stuff as you can. Do you ever get sick of the phone calls and texting? I'm also in a long distance relationship and go through phases of this. I wouldn't say that we text a lot. We honestly don't. Like, we will just not text and just be on our calls. So we have, again, like I said, 3 calls a day, and we really just talk about everything we wanted to talk about. The only time we text is if we've got something on our mind and we want to show each other, or it's like a photo of something, or like he sends me a lot of link of houses because he's trying to find a house for us to live in when I do move there. So that sort of stuff will come through as a text. Otherwise, it'll be on the phone call. There are some times where I will be super busy with what I'm doing, that when he calls, I'm like, hi, like, come on, quick, get along, like, I need to go, or I'm doing something. Or the same for him. He'll be in a meeting or something, I'll call and he'll be like, okay, I really can't talk now, I'll call you back later in 2 hours or something. Or when he's playing golf, he won't be on his phone when he's playing golf. So there definitely are times where it sort of clashes and it gets annoying, just because you'll be so focused on something and they'll call you and it'll be like the 3rd time you've called for the day, and you're like, well, what do we need to talk about right now that's so important that's taking me away from my job? But we just had to sort of come to the understanding that we didn't know what each other was doing in each exact moment. So it's more of like a, hey, pick up, I'm letting you know what I'm doing. If that's something that I don't want to talk on the phone with, I'll call you back later. So that's sort of what that's gotten to. But we haven't gotten to the point where if we're doing nothing and we're calling, we're like, okay, I'm bored of this, let's go. We're not at that point yet. Maybe we just haven't been in the long distance relationship long enough. Maybe that's just not something that's going to happen for us, because we both chat each other's heads off. Like, we're very talkative people. Not sure, but we'll see how that goes.
Do you ever get sick of the phone calls and texting? Yeah, we do a lot of FaceTimes. I think I think texting is the most, impersonal form of communication, then phone calls, and then FaceTime is the most personal. So we try to FaceTime when we talk. You can just get a lot more out of someone's expressions, their tones. Text messaging can get into trouble, especially if you're talking about something that's really important, because people can take things the wrong way. So yeah, we definitely do get tired of it. And I think that's why, like, besides the everyday questions, how's your day? What are you up to? Going a little bit deeper, reading something together, having things that you're in your relationship. Like, we have these little cards that we've done. We haven't done it in a while. We need to get back to that. All of that kind of stuff moves forward a relationship.
When are you going back to the US and what is your plan? So currently, and this changes all the time, but currently I am looking to go over at the end of November. That is after my brother's 21st birthday. I had promised him from day one that I would be there for that. So I am sticking to my word with that. I will be here for that. And then I will be trying to get an exemption organized for that time to move over to the US for 5 or so years. That's going to be my short-term goal, is to really start working on my collaborations and my sponsorships over there. Gymshark HQ is opening up in Denver, Colorado. So there is a Gymshark HQ opening up there. Alani Nutrition, which is another company I work with, is based out of the US. I am working on 2 other projects that are based in the US as well that I can't tell you about yet. But a lot of my work is going to be over there. So whether I was with Steve or not, the best move for me currently is to move over there. Obviously, if I wasn't with Steve, I wouldn't move, just because there's no point in me being over there if I can do things from here. But for me, with my work, financially, all that sort of stuff, it serves me or us, our relationship, better if I move over there and we sort of work and hustle, and then we move back to Australia in like 5 or so years time to start a family and really settle down in a beach place here that we can call ours our forever home kind of thing. So do you guys have rules? I wouldn't say rules, but there was one time where, well, I had pretty much just came out of quarantine and our calls were really shallow, in the sense that we weren't connecting when we called, we weren't talking about things that really mattered. It was just very shallow conversation. And from that moment on, because Steve started to have just a gross feeling, like he didn't feel like things were, not that things were working, he just didn't feel like I was as about it, or I was struggling a lot with not being there, or I wasn't putting in the time or effort to communicate. And we sort of got to the conclusion, again, communicated up to a conclusion, that we would set aside time to call each other, and we would look at each other on FaceTime, and that we would sit down and have quality conversation without any distractions. Meaning I wasn't sitting down talking with Tanya about work and being on the phone with Steve, because that's not giving Steve the time of the day that we have sat down and wanted to set aside to talk. So that was something that we sort of had to do as a rule. Nothing else is a rule. Obviously, just basic morals of being honest, being loyal, making sure we don't make the other one feel uncomfortable about anything, and just being aware of how that other person would feel in certain situations. So that's something that, I mean, is just hidden rules of a relationship. If you don't have that, it ain't gonna work.
Do you guys have rules? I don't know if we have rules. Like, you can't do that. I think we just talk. We just talk, and we value the other person's opinion, and we know that, we can tell each other anything. So I think, I don't know if it's necessarily rules. We just have a really good open line of communication. But there's just things that I think we know how the other person, because we've been in a relationship now for a year, we know how the other person reacts to certain situations. And now I think we either communicate about those situations or we just steer clear of those.
So, the last one that we're going to do, have you ever gone hours without texting or talking to your significant other and felt guilty? Is that okay? The one time that I've done this is when I was in LA. I was actually, this is actually like not when we were doing long distance. I was literally just traveling to LA for a workshop after being with Steve for a couple of months. And I went and trained at the Green at Santa Monica, where all of the acrobats train together. And because you're doing acro with other people, you are like touching other people, and it's not in a sexual way at all. It's all about the work and the skill. So it's got nothing to do with it being sexual, but it was something that Steve didn't really understand. I didn't feel guilty for it at the time, but once he explained to me that, one, he didn't know what it was like doing acro with other people, and 2, I hadn't spoken to him all day. I hadn't really checked in. I hadn't really thought about him. He started feeling a little bit gross, and he mentioned that to me that afternoon, and I sort of came to the conclusion, like, yeah, like I should have done a better job. I should have called you, introduced you to people, because months later, when we were doing sessions with one of the guys that I was training with, Steve really did come to the understanding that he knows exactly what he's doing. He's a complete professional. He's a Cirque du Soleil artist. He is amazing at what he does. And I was training to be a better athlete myself with this person. I wasn't training for any other reason than that. And I wasn't flirting. I wasn't doing anything like that. It was honestly just professional, but you wouldn't know about that unless he was there watching it, which he wasn't, and I wasn't checking in. So it was something that I didn't feel guilty for it. He didn't feel good about it. We spoke about it, we got through it, and that was fun. I think if you feel guilty for not talking to your partner, there's a reason for it, and it's good to touch base onto that. Otherwise, I definitely think that there is no reason as to why you should feel guilty if you don't talk, because not talking is fine as long as you do sort of check in and you really are putting the effort into talking when you do talk. I know that for myself, I would rather have better quality conversations than quantity of conversations. So I would rather talk one or two times a day and have better quality conversations than to talk 5 or 6 times a day and have it very average.
Have you gone hours with talking or texting and felt guilty? I wonder if this one is, have you gone hours without talking? I'll say both of those things. There are some times I think Morgan's more needy or I'm more needy. And I think in those times, you know, like you need to remember that other person, maybe they didn't text back right away because they're busy. We're different time zones. You know, it's in the middle of her day when I'm going to bed, and it's the middle of my day when she's waking up. So I think it's just about having some flexibility and getting in conversations when we can, and then at least trying to have one conversation where it's just undivided attention that we give one another. And it's hard. Because just things are busy, life is busy, and you get in that mundane everyday, okay, we're gonna talk at this time. The conversations, you know, are less about what's going on and more just about seeing the other person's face. But definitely, you know, I don't feel guilty for talking too much. I've never felt guilty because we've talked too much. I think that sometimes it's just, that's the way it goes. We don't force the conversation. We don't force being on the phone. Yeah, we call, but if we're busy doing something or if we just don't have a lot to talk about, we'll get off the phone. But then the other times we're in a great conversation and it's an hour. It's not like, oh, we got to hang up. We've talked for an hour. I think it's just about letting the relationship flow freely. And really, again, just being very aware of the fact that it's hard, it's long distance, you're gonna have your ups and downs, but at the end, you know it's gonna be worth it. So, and really, I think the first 3 months we've been apart haven't been awful. I think it's getting hard right now, but hopefully, hopefully they'll come up with a vaccine so we can travel. Otherwise, it's looking like the end of November, beginning of December. So anyhow, hopefully this helps. We'll see you guys. Say bye.
Anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you got a little bit out of this, a little bit of an insight into what a long distance relationship is looking like for me and Steve at the moment, for Steve and I at the moment. And I hope you enjoyed his little responses too. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching.